At 2:47 a.m., my phone lit up with Grandpa Orville's name. His voice was different, raw, desperate, almost unrecognizable. "Corey, listen to me. Don't go to work tomorrow. Promise me. Promise me." The terror in his 84-year-old voice made my blood run cold. I shot upright in bed, immediately awake. Grandpa Orville had called me exactly 3 times in the middle of the night during my entire life. Once when Grandma had her stroke. Once when Dad got into that car accident on I-95. And once when my cousin Bradley went missing for 2 days. Every single time it meant something terrible had happened. "Grandpa, slow down." "What's wrong?" I kept my voice steady, but my hand was already reaching for the lamp. Beside me, Tessa stirred, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach where our 8-week-old baby was growing. "There's no time to explain everything. You have to trust me, Corey. Don't go to Meridian Tower tomorrow. Call in sick. Say your car broke down. Say anything. Just don't go to that building." Meridian Tower. My workplace for the past 3 years. 52 stories of glass and steel in the heart of downtown, where I worked as a financial analyst on the 47th floor. The building where I'd met Tessa when she came in for a consulting project. The building where I'd gotten my promotion just 6 months ago. What could possibly be wrong with Meridian Tower? "Are you at home?" "Are you safe?" I asked, already calculating the drive time to his apartment. 20 minutes at this hour, maybe 15 if I pushed it. "I'm in my truck outside your building right now." That stopped me cold. I looked toward our bedroom window. We lived on the 8th floor, and sure enough, when I peered through the blinds, I could see his old Ford F-150 parked across the street, hazard lights blinking in the darkness. "You drove here at 3 in the morning?" "I had to make sure you heard me. I need to see your face when you promise me you won't go to work tomorrow." I threw on yesterday's jeans and a t-shirt, not bothering with shoes. "Stay there. I'm coming down." "Who is it?" Tessa asked, fully awake now. She knew my family well enough to recognize that middle-of-the-night calls meant crisis. "It's Grandpa. He's downstairs. He's worried about something at my work. I'll be right back." The elevator ride felt endless. My mind raced through possibilities. Had Grandpa's mind finally started to slip? He'd been struggling since Grandma passed 3 years ago. Dad had mentioned finding him talking to her photo like she was still there. Mom worried about early dementia. But this felt different. This felt real. I burst through the lobby doors to find Grandpa standing by his truck, and the sight of him made my chest tighten. Orville Brennan had always been larger than life. 6 feet 2 inches of solid muscle even in his 70s, hands like sledgehammers from 40 years of construction work, a jaw that could have been carved from granite. But tonight he looked fragile. His white hair was uncombed, sticking up at odd angles. He wore his pajama pants and a construction jacket I recognized from his foreman days. His hand shook as he reached for me. "Corey, thank God." He grabbed my shoulders with those powerful hands, and I could feel them trembling. "You have to listen to me. Something's wrong with that building. I can feel it." "Feel it? Grandpa, what do you mean?" His blue eyes, the same shade as mine, bored into me with an intensity I'd never seen before. 40 years in construction, kiddo. 40 years of building this city from the ground up. You learn to read the signs, the way concrete sounds when it's under stress, the way steel groans when it's carrying more than it should. That building is screaming, Corey, and nobody else can hear it. "Did you go there tonight? To Meridian?" He nodded, his grip tightening on my shoulders. "After you sent me that ultrasound photo. My great-grandchild. I wanted to see where their daddy worked, wanted to picture you there, successful and safe. But when I got there, when I really looked at it, really listened, I knew. The underground parking structure, the support pillars, the way the building sits, it's all wrong. It's going to come down, Corey. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but soon. and my gut says tomorrow. Standing there in the yellow glow of streetlights, looking at my grandfather's desperate face, I had to make a choice. Trust the logical part of my brain that said this was grief and old age talking, or trust the man who'd never once led me astray. The man who'd pulled me back from a construction site edge seconds before a crane collapsed when I was 12. The man who'd taught me that intuition wasn't magic, it was experience whispering warnings. "Okay," I said, "I'll stay home tomorrow." Life had been beautifully ordinary that week. Tuesday evening meant our regular routine. Tessa and I cooking dinner together in our apartment kitchen, her slicing vegetables while I handled the pasta, both of us dancing around each other in the small space we'd learned to navigate like choreographed performers. The kitchen window framed the city skyline, and I could see Meridian Tower from where I stood, its lights creating a pillar of gold against the darkening sky. "Henderson's report is finally ready," I told Tessa as I stirred the marinara sauce. 6 months of analysis, and tomorrow at 9, I present it to the board. Janet says, if this goes well, the senior analyst position is mine. Tessa moved behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "You've earned it. Nobody works harder than you." Her hand moved to her stomach in that new way she'd developed over the past 2 weeks, protective and gentle. "Besides, we're going to need the extra money now." The ultrasound photo was pinned to our refrigerator with a magnet shaped like the Eiffel Tower from our honeymoon. 8 weeks old, our baby looked like a tiny bean, but it was our bean, our future. I'd sent the photo to everyone that mattered, my parents, Tessa's family, and of course, Grandpa Orville. His response had been immediate and overjoyed. "Best news these old bones have heard in years, kiddo. That baby's going to have the best great-grandpa in the business. Already planning the treehouse." Grandpa Orville had been the constant in my life when everything else shifted. When Dad's job moved us 3 times during my childhood, Grandpa was the anchor who never moved. His house smelled like sawdust and coffee. His garage was a wonderland of tools and half-finished projects, and his stories could transport you to construction sites where he'd built the very bones of our city. Since Grandma Rose passed 3 years ago, something in him had dimmed but never extinguished. We started our weekly lunch tradition the month after her funeral. Every Thursday, 12:30 sharp, at Sal's Diner on 5th Street. He'd order the same thing, turkey club, no mayo, extra bacon, and tell me stories about building the city. "See that bank on 3rd Avenue?" he'd said last week, pointing through the diner window. "Built that in 78. They wanted to cut corners on the foundation, use cheaper concrete. I told them they could find another foreman if they wanted to build on sand. Building's still standing because we did it right." That was Grandpa, uncompromising about safety, obsessed with structural integrity. Dad, Randall, often joked that Grandpa could diagnose a building's problems like a doctor reading symptoms. "Your grandfather once saved an entire construction crew by refusing to let them work until they reinforced a wall," Dad had told me. "The whole thing came down an hour after they finished the reinforcement. Would have killed 12 men. My job at Meridian Tower had been a source of pride for him. When I got hired 3 years ago, he'd driven me to work on my first day. 47th floor, he'd whistled. My grandson working in the clouds. That building's only 5 years old, you know. State-of-the-art everything. Smart building, they call it. Sensors monitoring everything from temperature to structural stress. The irony wasn't lost on me that the man who built with his hands had a grandson who built financial models on computers. But Grandpa never made me feel like my work was less important. "Numbers matter too, kiddo," he'd say. "Everything I built started with someone's calculations." My parents, Randall and Daphne, lived 40 minutes away in the suburbs. Dad had followed a different path. Medical equipment sales, a job that required charm and persistence but no physical labor. Mom taught 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary. They worried about Grandpa living alone, especially after they'd found him one night sitting in his garage, talking to Grandma's photo as if she were sitting beside him on the workbench. He's getting older, Corey, Mom had said last Sunday at dinner. 84 is no joke. Maybe we should talk about assisted living. He'd die before agreeing to that, Dad had responded. You know how he is about independence. But I knew Grandpa better than anyone. Yes, he talked to Grandma's photo, but so did I sometimes. Grief makes us reach for connections that logic says don't exist. And yes, he was getting older, moving slower, forgetting occasional appointments. But his mind, especially when it came to construction and buildings, remained sharp as the day he retired 15 years ago. That Tuesday night, as Tessa and I cleaned dishes and planned our week, everything felt perfectly aligned. The promotion was within reach. Our baby was healthy. Spring was arriving early, warming the city and filling the parks with blossoms. I had no reason to suspect that in just 6 hours, my phone would ring with a call that would save my life and change everything I thought I knew about intuition, family, and the bonds that connect us across time and space. The phone call shattered the peaceful night like a brick through glass. Grandpa's breathing was ragged, desperate, each exhale carrying a weight of panic I'd never heard from him before. This was a man who'd faced down collapsing scaffolds, who'd walked beams 40 stories high, who'd pulled men from machinery accidents without his hands shaking. But now his voice trembled with raw terror. "Grandpa, what's wrong? Are you having a heart attack? Should I call 911? No! Listen to me, just listen. Don't go to Meridian Tower tomorrow. Call in sick, food poisoning, family emergency, I don't care what excuse you give them." I pressed the phone harder against my ear, trying to understand. Behind his voice I could hear traffic sounds, a horn honking. He was still in his truck. "You're scaring me." "What's happening? Talk to me." "I drove by there tonight, Corey. After you sent me that ultrasound. I wanted to see where my great-grandchild's father worked. But when I got there, when I really looked at that building, something's wrong. The underground parking structure, there are cracks that weren't there last month. Water pooling where it shouldn't be. The support pillars have shifted. My rational mind kicked in hard. How could you even see that at night? The parking garage is restricted access after hours. I know the security guard, Tommy Watts. His father worked construction with me for 20 years. He let me walk through. Corey, I'm telling you, that building is dying. I can feel it in my bones, the same feeling I had before the Riverside collapse in '92. The Riverside collapse. He'd mentioned it before, but never in detail. 6 men died when a parking structure gave way during construction. Grandpa had tried to stop the concrete pour that day, said something felt wrong, but the project manager overruled him. He'd carried that guilt for 30 years. "Have you been taking your medication?" The words came out before I could stop them. "You know what Dr. Jeffries said about your blood pressure, affecting your sleep. This isn't about my pills." His shout made me pull the phone away from my ear. Tessa sat up in bed, worry creasing her face. I know what I saw. 40 years of construction, Corey. 40 years of learning how concrete cries before it breaks, how steel sings before it snaps. That building is going to fail. Okay. Let's say you're right. Shouldn't we call someone? Building inspection? The fire department? You think I haven't thought of that? Who's going to listen to an 84-year-old retired foreman at 3 in the morning? They'll think I'm senile. They'll write up a report, maybe send someone to look at it next week. But tomorrow, Corey, you need to stay home tomorrow. My phone buzzed with another call. Dad. I declined it, but it immediately rang again. Grandpa, did you call Dad? I called everyone. Your father, your mother, your Uncle Jerome. Someone needs to make you understand. You called everyone at 3 in the morning? I'd call the Pope if I thought it would keep you home tomorrow. My phone was now buzzing constantly. A text from Mom. Honey, Grandpa Orville is at our door. He's begging us to keep you home. Should we call his doctor? Another from Dad. Corey, what's happening? Your grandfather is crying. I've never seen him cry, not even at Mom's funeral. Grandpa, you're scaring the entire family. You drove to Mom and Dad's house? I drove there first. They wouldn't listen either. Your dad thinks I'm having an episode. Your mom wanted to call Dr. Jeffries. But I'm not crazy, Corey. I'm not confused. I'm trying to save your life. Tessa touched my arm gently. Put him on speaker. I did, and her calm voice filled the darkness. Grandpa Orville? It's Tessa. We hear you. We believe you're seeing something concerning. How about this? Corey works from home tomorrow just for the morning. He can dial into his meetings, send his report electronically. The whole day, Grandpa insisted. Promise me the whole day. And Tessa, you stay away from downtown too. That building, when it goes, it won't go quietly. Another call came through. Janet, my boss. At 3:24 a.m., I declined it, but a text followed immediately. Corey, someone called the office emergency line saying you're in danger. What's happening? Are you okay? Grandpa, did you call my office? I called the building management. They laughed at me, said their sensors would detect any structural issues. Sensors, like a computer knows what 40 years of experience knows. The weight of the moment pressed down on me. The Henderson report, 6 months of work, sitting on my laptop. The promotion review at 10 a.m., the career I'd built, brick by brick, just like Grandpa had built his buildings. But under all of that, deeper than logic or reason, was the sound of his voice, the terror of a man who didn't scare easily. If I stay home tomorrow and nothing happens, we're going to talk about getting you help. Real help. Agreed? If nothing happens, I'll check myself into any facility you want. But Corey, something will happen. I stake my life on it. At 4 a.m., I made the decision that would save my life. Sitting at our kitchen table with a cup of coffee growing cold in my hands, I stared at my laptop screen, cursor blinking in the email draft to Janet. Tessa sat beside me, her hand on my back, silent support in the pre-dawn darkness. Severe food poisoning from dinner last night, I typed. Unable to come in today. Henderson report attached for the 9 a.m. presentation. Will dial in if possible. Apologies for the inconvenience. My finger hovered over the send button. 6 months of work leading to this presentation. The promotion committee assembled specifically for my review. The senior analyst position that would mean a $30,000 raise. Perfect timing with the baby coming. You're doing the right thing, Tessa whispered. I hit send. The relief in Grandpa's voice when I called him back was overwhelming. Thank you, thank God, thank you, kiddo. He was actually crying, something I'd only witnessed once before, at Grandma's funeral. I sent the email. I'm staying home, but Grandpa, you have to tell me exactly what you saw. Walk me through it. He took a shaking breath. The underground parking garage runs the full footprint of the building, right? 3 levels down. The weight of those 52 stories, all of it rests on massive support pillars that go down another 40 feet into bedrock. Okay, I'm following. When they built Meridian, they used a new type of concrete mix. Supposed to be stronger, lighter, more environmentally friendly. I read about it in Construction Weekly when they were building it. Tonight, when Tommy let me into the garage, I saw spiderweb cracks in 3 of the main support pillars. Not surface cracks, Corey. Deep structural fractures. Couldn't that be normal settling? That's what I thought at first. Buildings settle, concrete ages. But then I saw the water. There was pooling water at the base of the eastern pillars, and the concrete was darker there, saturated. That means water infiltration, probably from a broken main. Water and this new concrete mix, if I'm right about its composition, that's like mixing gasoline and matches. How long has this been happening? Based on the discoloration patterns, months, maybe longer. The building's sensors are probably reading the stress changes as normal settling. But I touched those pillars, Corey. I put my hand on them like I've done with 1,000 pillars before. They're dying. The concrete is soft in places, crumbling under my fingers like wet sand. I pulled up Meridian Tower's website on my laptop, looking at the building specifications they proudly displayed. It says here the building passed inspection just 3 months ago. Perfect structural rating. Inspectors look at paperwork more than they look at buildings these days. They trust the sensors, the computer readouts. Nobody gets their hands dirty anymore. Nobody really feels the building's bones. My phone buzzed with responses to my sick day email. Janet. Feel better? Henderson report received. We'll manage the presentation. Then Garrett. Dude, you sound terrible in that email. Need me to grab anything from your desk? I thought about the personal items on my desk. The photo of Tessa and me at our wedding. The ultrasound picture I'd just printed. My lucky baseball from when the Cubs won the World Series. Yeah, I texted back. Could you grab the papers from my top drawer, the Johnson account notes? I'll need them for tomorrow. No problem, I'll swing by your desk first thing. The morning preparation continued with mechanical precision. I showered, dressed in casual clothes instead of my usual suit, made breakfast that I couldn't eat. My stomach churned with a mixture of guilt and dread. Was I destroying my career over an old man's paranoia? Or was I saving my life based on decades of hard-earned wisdom? At 6:30 a.m., I sat at our dining room table with my laptop, preparing to dial into the morning meetings. Tessa brought me fresh coffee, kissed my forehead. I'm proud of you for trusting him. What if nothing happens? What if I just threw away my promotion? Then you trusted someone who loves you. That's never wrong. At 7 a.m., Grandpa called again. I need to tell you something else. I called the city emergency services at 6 a.m., reported the structural concerns. They said they'd send an inspector this morning. You did? What did they say? They took me more seriously at 6 a.m. than at 3 a.m. The dispatcher said they'd been getting other calls about rumbling sounds from the building. Maintenance workers reporting unusual vibrations. They're sending someone at 8:15. I looked at my phone. 7:47 a.m. In 13 minutes, I would normally be badging into Meridian Tower, riding the express elevator to 47, settling into my desk with my second coffee of the day. Instead, I sat in my apartment, watching the sunrise paint the city gold, waiting to see if my grandfather's 40 years of experience would prove right or wrong. Priya texted at 7:55. Where are you? Janet's looking for you for pre-meeting prep. Food poisoning. Sent email. Can you take notes for me? Of course. Feel better. I'll handle everything. 8 a.m. arrived with the usual sounds of the city waking up. Traffic increasing on the street below. The neighbor's door slamming as they left for work. Normal. Ordinary. Everything exactly as it should be on a Wednesday morning in March. Except I was home. My career potentially in ruins, because an 84-year-old man felt something wrong in concrete and steel. 8:43 a.m. I was on the couch, laptop open, trying to dial into the morning meeting when Tessa screamed from the kitchen. Corey! Oh my God! Corey! The pure terror in her voice sent me running. She stood frozen by the breakfast bar, her phone in one trembling hand, the other pressed to her mouth. Her face had gone completely white. What? What happened? She turned the phone toward me. The news alert filled the screen in bold red letters. Breaking. Meridian Tower collapse in downtown financial district. Mass casualty event underway. My legs gave out. I grabbed the counter to keep from falling, my mind refusing to process the words. Meridian Tower. Collapsed. The building where I should have been sitting at my desk on the 47th floor, reviewing notes for a presentation that would never happen. I lunged for the TV remote, and every channel showed the same horrific image that would be burned into my memory forever. Where Meridian Tower had stood just minutes ago, where 52 stories of glass and steel had reached toward the sky, there was now a mountain of rubble. Dust clouded the entire downtown area like a volcanic eruption. The building hadn't fallen sideways like a tree. It had pancaked straight down, floor-crushing floor in a deadly cascade that took less than 12 seconds. The news anchor's voice shook as she reported, "At 8:41 a.m., Meridian Tower suffered what witnesses describe as a complete structural failure. The building, which houses approximately 2,000 employees during business hours, collapsed into its own footprint. First responders are racing to the scene. My phone exploded with calls and texts. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think beyond the single fact that I should have been there. My desk was on the 47th floor, northeast corner. At 8:41 a.m. on any other Wednesday, I would have been reviewing the Henderson report one final time. Then the first text that shattered me. "This is Angela, Garrett's wife. Have you heard from him? He went to your desk this morning to get some papers. Please call me." Garrett was at my desk. My desk on the 47th floor, because I asked him to get my papers. I tried calling him, straight to voicemail, Priya next, nothing. Janet, silence. The news anchor continued. "We're receiving reports that an evacuation had begun at approximately 8:15 a.m. following an emergency inspection request. It's unclear how many people were able to evacuate before the collapse." My dad's truck screeched into our apartment building's parking lot. I watched from the window as he and Grandpa got out, both running toward our building entrance. They burst through our door minutes later without knocking. Grandpa looked like he'd aged 10 years in 4 hours. His face was gray, his hands shaking violently. "Corey, thank God you listened." "The people, Grandpa. All those people." Garrett went to my desk. Priya was taking notes for me. "They're all gone because of where I should have been." "No," Grandpa said firmly, grabbing my shoulders. "Listen to me." I called it in. 6 this morning, I called emergency services. They started evacuating. As if responding to his words, the news anchor pressed her earpiece and announced, "We're now getting an extraordinary update. Emergency services confirmed they received a call at 6 a.m. from a retired construction foreman, warning of imminent structural failure at Meridian Tower. Building management initially resisted, but agreed to begin evacuation at 8:15 a.m. We're told approximately 1,800 people were successfully evacuated before the collapse. The room spun. 1,800 people evacuated, but the building held 2,000. "You saved them," I whispered to Grandpa. "You saved almost everyone." "Not everyone," he said, and the weight of those words would stay with him forever. The phone rang, Garrett's number. I answered so fast I nearly dropped it. "Corey! Jesus Christ, Corey, are you watching this?" Garrett's voice was high, borderline hysterical. I was in the stairwell when they called the evacuation. "I'd just gotten your papers. 5th floor when the building came down. The stairwell held just long enough. I'm alive because I was getting your stupid papers." Relief flooded through me so hard I had to sit down. Then another call. Priya. "Corey, I'm okay." I made it out. Most of us made it out, but not everyone. Janet stayed to grab hard drives from the server room. She didn't make it in time. The news kept flowing. The building had collapsed at its base, the underground parking structure failing exactly as Grandpa had predicted. Water from a broken main had been eating at the experimental concrete for months, maybe years. The building's smart sensors had categorized the degradation as normal settling, never triggering alarms. Mom arrived, tears streaming down her face as she hugged me. "Your grandfather called us all." We thought he'd lost his mind, but he knew. Somehow, he knew. Dad stood with his arm around Grandpa, who seemed to shrink with each update about those who didn't make it out. Security guards who stayed to help evacuation. Maintenance workers in the basement. Early arrivals who thought they had more time. "I should have called sooner," Grandpa whispered. "If I'd called at 3 a.m. when I first knew, maybe they'd all have lived." But looking at him, this 84-year-old man who'd driven through the night, who'd pounded on doors, and made desperate calls and refused to be dismissed as senile, I saw the truth. He'd done something impossible. He'd listened to concrete and steel sing their death song, and he'd saved 1,800 lives, including mine. 3 weeks later, the investigation revealed what Grandpa had known in his bones. The experimental concrete mix used in Meridian Tower's construction contained a calcium compound that reacted catastrophically with prolonged water exposure. The broken water main, hidden beneath the parking structure, had been slowly dissolving the building's foundation for 14 months. The smart sensors had been programmed to ignore gradual changes, interpreting the daily degradation as normal settling. The building had been dying for over a year, and only one person had heard its death rattle. Of the 2,000 employees who worked at Meridian Tower, 1,847 made it out alive. The 153 who didn't became names I memorized, faces I saw when I closed my eyes. Janet Morrison, my boss, who stayed behind to save company data. Thomas Chen, the security guard who refused to leave until every floor was checked. Maria Santos, the cleaning woman who was in the basement storage room. Each name represented a life that ended where mine should have. At the memorial service, held in Riverside Park under a gray April sky, I met their families. A woman named Bethany Chen grabbed my hands with desperate strength. "Your grandfather saved my husband. He was IT support on the 30th floor. Our twins still have a father because of that evacuation. Please thank him for me." I met dozens more. Each survivor had a story: the accountant who just returned from maternity leave, the intern on his 3rd day, the executive who'd almost skipped the evacuation, thinking it was a drill. They all lived because an 84-year-old man had recognized the signs of disaster and refused to be silenced. Grandpa became reluctantly famous. The media called him the guardian of Meridian and the man who heard death coming. Interview requests poured in from every major network. He declined them all. Fame wasn't what changed him. It was the weight of the 153 he couldn't save. "I should have called earlier," he'd say during our Thursday lunches, which we never missed now. "You saved 1,847 lives, Grandpa." But not all of them. The city demolished what remained of Meridian Tower and transformed the lot into a memorial park. Each victim got a tree, 153 trees in neat rows, with plaques bearing names and ages. Grandpa visited every week, touching each trunk like he once touched concrete pillars, speaking apologies to the wind. 6 months later, our son was born. We named him Orville, though we'd call him Ollie. As I held him for the first time, his tiny fingers wrapped around mine, Grandpa whispered to him, "Trust your gut, little one." And when someone who loves you says something's wrong, you listen, even if the whole world says they're crazy. The investigation changed building codes nationwide. The experimental concrete was banned. Sensors were recalibrated to flag any structural anomaly, no matter how gradual. They called it the Orville Protocol, though Grandpa hated the name. "Should call it the Common Sense Protocol," he'd grumble. I never returned to corporate finance. The thought of working in another high-rise made my chest tight. Instead, I started teaching risk assessment at the community college, using Meridian as a case study. Tessa supported the change, even though it meant half the salary. "Money isn't worth your peace of mind," she'd say, holding baby Ollie close. Grandpa still calls at odd hours sometimes. Last week, at 1 a.m. "That new restaurant on 5th Street, the one with the fancy lights, don't eat there. Something's off about their storage area." We didn't eat there. 2 days later, the health department shut them down for violations that could have caused serious food poisoning. Some might say Grandpa has a gift, some kind of supernatural sense for danger. He laughs at that. "It's not magic," he insists. "It's 40 years of paying attention. Buildings, food, people. They all give warnings before they fail. Most folks are just too busy to notice. But I know the truth goes deeper. It's love that drives him to patrol the city at night, checking the places where his family works and eats and lives. Love that makes an old man stand guard over his grandson's world. He saved 1,847 people that day, but in his heart, only one mattered. His grandson, who was about to become a father. The others were what he calls fortunate proximity, but I know better. Each life saved carries a piece of his enormous heart. Grandpa Orville still builds things, though not with concrete and steel anymore. He builds safety nets made of intuition, experience, and fierce protective love. When he calls at 2 a.m. with a warning, no matter how strange it sounds, I listen. Our whole family does now. Dad had sensors installed in Grandpa's truck, so we know when he's out on his midnight patrols. Mom keeps a notebook of his warnings, and she's noted an 87% accuracy rate. Buildings talk, Grandpa tells baby Ollie during their daily visits. Concrete sings, steel whispers, and love, little one, love screams the loudest of all. You just have to learn how to listen. The truth is, we're all buildings in a way, carrying weight, facing pressure, sometimes cracking where no one can see, and sometimes, if we're lucky, someone who loves us notices the signs before we collapse. Someone who refuses to let us fall, even when the whole world says they're wrong to worry. That someone saved my life with a 2 a.m. phone call, and 1,846 other lives with his stubborn refusal to be dismissed. Buildings talk, grandfathers love. And sometimes, that's all the magic this world needs. If this story touched your heart, or reminded you of someone who's watched over you, please share it with them. Let them know their vigilance matters. Comment below with your own stories of intuition that saved the day, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories that remind us of the bonds that keep us safe. Sometimes the most ordinary people become extraordinary heroes, simply by refusing to stay silent when every instinct screams danger.